My 45M teetotaler wife, 41F, has given me an ultimatum about drinking. Been happily married for over 10 years. I treat her kids, my stepkids, as if they were my own, helping to raise them and put them through college. We've always had soft arguments about alcohol, but there's never been yelling or anything even close to resembling anger or harm. She was previously married to an abusive alcoholic, and I've always been a fairly heavy social drinker. We knew this about each other going in, so it's not some revelation. Over the years she has made her disdain for drinking very well known, but she's accepted it as my family and friends are all social drinkers. In the last few months she's started to suggest she would leave if I didn't stop completely. I asked if we could come up with a compromise, something like once a week bar time with my friends instead of 2 or 3. Well, that didn't go over. Instead she gave me a flat-out ultimatum: stop forever or it's over. I've been booze-free for 3 weeks now and it's been good. But I have no real intention of never having another beer for the rest of my life. It's only a matter of time before I end her demand, and it could spell disaster. Anybody have any advice? Is this relationship salvageable? Or are we wasting our time? Too long did not read. Quit drinking or we're done. She is probably seeing patterns in you that she saw with her previous husband. To be honest, I was like you and it spiraled over several years. Heavy social drinking is not something you can keep up as you get older. It turns into a form of alcoholism, whether you want to label it that or not. Either way, this is a discussion you both need to have, and to be honest, you need to be honest with yourself about your drinking, because we can't gauge from this post what it's actually like, but you already seem on the little defensive, which raises a red flag for me. I think that fairly heavy social drinker threw up red flags for me. Maybe she thinks you are more heavy than social. While I don't traditionally like ultimatums, she has a genuine reason to be concerned, and you aren't listening. I worry about people whose social life is centered around alcohol. I can guarantee that if my wife had an issue with my alcohol intake, I'd try to find a compromise. But it sounds like you are dismissive of her. It's telling that she feels the need to finally issue an ultimatum. Something like once a week bar fine with my friends instead of 2 or 3 inches. Dude, are you sure you're not 25? Fairly heavy social drinker 2-3 times a week. Has she issued you this ultimatum because you've got a problem with alcohol? I'm gonna guess yes. So, get help, stop drinking, or contemplate ending your marriage. Going out drinking every 2-3 weeks is pretty much going out drinking every weekend. If that's the case, that's a lot. I don't blame her for giving you an ultimatum like that, cause it could get violent super fast and it could ruin a lot of things. Try counseling. Not drinking is fine for her, but controlling you is not. Need more info, but thoughts, possibilities. She's damaged by her ex and needs therapy, and you need to stay off the drinking until then. You're reminding her of her ex when you're drunk, however you manage it. She's an ass and just wants her way with no intention of improving her mental health trauma. You're an ass and just want to drink because you've been good enough to her and her feelings don't matter. Maybe some combo of all these things. For me, the fact that you can count being 3 weeks sober as being an unusual occurrence in your life is kind of telling, to be honest. I wonder also, how many times do you end up having just one, at other times, out with meeting your friends? My ex would find reasons to have a beer if we were out together, or if we were going on holiday he'd drink whilst traveling. Do you try to fit drinks in at other times? Or is it only when you were out with your friends? Sometimes it's just the fact that people who don't have much interest in their life beyond going to the pub are pretty boring people. Can't you and your friends find a different hobby? Do something that's a bit different. After 10 years, what happened to trigger this? What did you do? And add it to that, she doesn't have the right to demand you stop drinking knowing going in that you drink. Regardless of whether she drinks or not. Honestly, that would be a deal breaker for me. Go up a counselor together. Ultimatums are bullshit in my opinion, so I wouldn't have agreed in the first place. She put up with it for you to raise her kids, now she doesn't have to. Why has she decided that now is the time she can no longer tolerate your drinking? All that time at a bar, are you sure you like your wife? You offered a compromise and she offered an ultimatum. I'd call her bluff, and if she goes through with it then she's not worth it. Ultimatums are controlling, immature bullshit, and if you knuckle under, this won't be her last one. Try couples therapy to work through what's really going on and finding a healthy compromise. For someone 21-30, I'd say that's normal, and even then it'd be a stretch. To be doing that often in your 40s, that definitely isn't normal. If you legit don't have a drinking problem, you do need a better hobby. I can see why the wife is acting that way. Even if Op doesn't physically or mentally need to drink, seems he needs to go out to socialize, drink more than the norm. If you, Op, think you don't have any issues and she's overthinking things if she isn't willing to compromise, then I'd say you have to end it sadly. Well, you paid for raising her kids and put them through college as you said, so now that that's done she's looking for a reason to leave. And is saying, sorry, I got what I wanted so it's time for me to go, would sound kind of selfish. She's looking for a way to put the blame on you, making ridiculous demands. You sound like a functioning alcoholic, but that's just a phase. No one can sustain it long term, they ultimately spiral. It gets tiring to be around a heavy social drinker when you're the one keeping shit together. Drunk people do not realize how unpleasant they can be when they're drunk and having a ball. All that time someone else has to be disciplined and cautious to balance things in a relationship and family. I'm sorry to say this, but you sound exhausting to live with if you get drunk as often as 3 days a week. I couldn't do it, so I fully understand your wife. She knew who you were going into the relationship. The whole trying to change you thing doesn't ever end well. Not sure why she can't come to some sort of compromise, not even going out with friends once a month. That seems more than reasonable. Unless you are aggressive with her or absolutely out of control when you drink, based on her past, the wanting you not drink at all would make sense if that's the case. Quite frankly, being married to a teetotaler would drive me to drinking. That being said, if you aren't engaging in abusive, illegal, destructive, immoral, or other degenerate behavior when you drink, then you have a leg to stand on. I would ask your wife to have a rational discussion with you to see if some compromise can be reached. In my experience, ultimatums just breed resentment. I wonder how crazy her next ultimatum will be. Not worth it. You're not asking for much. Mine pulled the same BS. Look, you married me and accepted who I was. You said that in vows and there was zero effort on my part to hide anything from you. Now you want everything your way or you're bailing because even though you promised to love and accept every part of me, now you change your mind. It's total bullshit woman dominating behavior. Let me tell you, after this it will be something else. You will change everything but your name just to have her leave anyway. I'm sorry, but in my opinion the process has begun of her ditching and that's just her current excuse. Well, I learned what teetotaler means. Can I post to ask where in the world Op is? Meeting in a bar with friends is very normal in a small village in Europe as it's the only place to go. 1 or 2 pints, watch the football or racing and go home. I'm not trying to belittle what everyone else is saying because if he is in a large city then it is concerning. I am going to go against the flow here, and as I am from England it might be a culture thing. Me and my wife often to the pub 2-3 times a week, big game on, let's go, can't be bothered cooking, out we go. I have often heard Yanks go out to bars to get drunk, unsure if this is true, but in Blighty we do it to socialize. When me and my better half to go out we'll maybe only have 3 or 4 pints unless it's a Saturday with a few games on, then things are different, but I can assure you neither us are alcohol dependent as we have random screening jobs. Something like once a week bar time with my friends instead of 2 or 3. I used to drink twice a week when I was between 19 and 21. German here, so basically at beginning of college. And while fun, I found that that's a lot. I would expect an adult to drink a beer once or twice a week and to have a few more drinks once a month tops. I've always been a fairly heavy social drinker. Drinking with the buddies 2-3 times a week is excessive. What is your definition of heavy drinker? Are you getting drunk? You are pickling your brain. There is something your wife is seeing in your behavior that you are not seeing or admitting. While never touching another drop seems extreme, she must have a reason why she feels the need to draw her line with an ultimatum. Try couples counseling. Maybe with the help of a counselor she might be more open to some sort of compromise. It's worth a shot if this is the only big issue in your marriage. 2-3 nights every week of heavy social drinking at 45 when you're married. And you think that she's being unreasonable for asking you to stop. I feel weird about how you're describing the fact that you take care of her kids financially. Is that something that you hold over her head every time she confronts you about this? Do you bring up her alcoholic ex to make her feel like she's being unreasonable and crazy because of her traumatic past? No wonder she's giving you an ultimatum. Good for her. I'm glad that you haven't succeeded at making her feel insane for thinking that your unhinged drinking habits aren't normal. How much are you spending going out for drinks 2-3 nights a week? I don't buy alcohol out often because after just a few drinks with my partner and I the tab can get really high. And #X200B. The ultimatum is a lot, don't get me wrong, but how much heavy social drinking we talking here? A few times my partner got too wasted at bars, parties and was a nightmare to be around. Normally he's a fun drunk. What kind of drunk are you? And #X200B. Are you also having 2-3 hangover days a week in addition? That's a lot of days with you being unavailable to your wife. Maybe that's why. The fact that you don't go into more detail about your drinking, e.g. how much, how you act when drunk etc., is telling. Were you drunk 2-3 times a week? 2-3 nights out drinking every week sounds like a lot, and I'm more than a decade younger than you. Sounds like something 22-year-olds get up to. You drink 2 to 3 times a week, heavily. How much time does that take? How much money does that cost? How many mornings are you hungover? How many times a week are you going on dates with your partner? Sounds like you were in denial, dude. Responsible adults who are married with children don't spend 2 to 3 nights a week at the bar with friends. You either have a drinking problem, have a responsibility, being a grown-up problem, or both. I know 2 alcoholics. Both view themselves as in control and no negative consequences of their drinking. The reality is that the drinking pushes people away, alcoholic rage over nothing, constant alcoholic tantrums. Their response: not my fault. I did nothing. The drama is real. Could you ask her what prompted the change? Personally, this would be a couples therapy thing. Going out drinking 2-3 times per week sounds pretty excessive. I would sit down and discuss with her what her concerns are. A deep discussion. Fairly heavy social drinker 2 or 3 times a week. Whether you want to admit it or not, you're an alcoholic. This is what she can see, and I guess it is bringing up past trauma that she can't get past. My advice is to quit drinking totally. That's probably the only way you will keep this relationship together. Respectfully, you are considering losing a marriage over alcohol. This should be an enormous red flag to you. This is not how people with a normal relationship to alcohol think. 2-3 times a week. I'm a Brit and even I think this is a lot. You're making this sound a lot more innocent than it is, and I reckon your wife would have a completely different story to share. No wonder she's given you an ultimatum. Counseling. Ultimatums don't usually come out of thin air, and there aren't enough details here to say for sure what the best course is. Overall, if you can't see life without alcohol, you can't stay together. There's not much in between if her mandate is as black and white as it's being presented, but I sort of doubt it is. There are 2 sides to every story. My boyfriend would describe himself as a social drinker. But when he gets to a certain point, and the friends are no longer there, he never remembers what an asshole he is to me and the problems that the alcohol causes, since he's blackout. I've never heard the phrase fairly heavy social drinker before, but that definitely doesn't sound like something a non-alcoholic would say. 2-3 bar trips a week sounds like something I'd expect from a 20-something in university, not a grown man. I treat her kids, my stepkids, as if they were my own, helping to raise them and put them through college. I'm not sure why you put this here except to try and win brownie points in the sub by showing off how good you are to kids you're not bio-related to. I have no real intention of never having another beer for the rest of my life. Okay, but could you limit it to 1 drink per social occasion? What's more important to you? Your alcohol or your wife's concern for your alcoholism? 2 or 3 bars nights a week and fairly heavy drinking. That's a lot. I can see why she's upset and worried. I can understand. My bio dad was an alcoholic and died. I never met him. I don't drink myself as I don't want any part of that life. It's very hard to see your partner drinking that much and choosing alcohol over you. Sorry. Are you just having 1 drink when you go? Why 3 times a week? I'm 32 and I find that excessive. I have bottles of alcohol and buy bottles often, but even then I drink once a week at most. It does sound like you need to cut back. Once a week makes sense, but again the excessive drinking isn't healthy at your age. I used to go clubbing at 25 and did 2 days a week of heavy drinking max. But that wasn't healthy at the end of the day. I'd cut back, but obviously going cold turkey isn't where you want to be. You both either compromise or you split. That's really it. Perhaps counseling. Don't get me wrong, I'm not judging. I have an alcohol problem myself. But 2-3 nights every week at the bar sounds like a lot. Her kids saw her father get drunk every day and be abusive. Maybe she doesn't want him to grow with another person who drinks. I don't think drinking is enough to let go of your wife of 10 years. She has a valid reason to stop you from drinking. Do you have one though? You are 100% an alcoholic if you are willing to end a marriage that has spanned a decade in order to drink alcohol. I come from a long line of alcoholics and your description of your actions essentially just described my dad and grandpa. You haven't provided enough detail about her perspective. What pushed you to post this here? Specifically, how much do you drink a day on average? When you go out, weekly, how much do you spend weekly on alcohol? How often are you getting drunk? This could be about health as well. Heavy drinking is associated with a ton of health issues, which could be an issue. Honestly, I'm skeptical of what you posted here, and I think you need to do some self-reflection on your relationship with alcohol. If your drinking is causing relationship issues, that's a hallmark of alcoholism.